Normally, you would expect our politicians to speak for hours and hours together. But here is somebody who made a difference with just a 3-minute speech and emerged as one of the greatest rising stars in Indian politics today. Definitely the star of the no confidence vote that we saw recently in the parliament. Omar Abdullah, welcome to Walk the Talk.
Thank you very much.
How wonderful to have you on Walk the Talk. Early morning, right here with parliament as a backdrop. You are the new star hero for so many young people, in fact young and old around the country.
But it's taken me 10 years. I started in Parliament 10 years ago. So it's not as if I've just burst on the scene, but it's amazing how 3 minutes can change everything.
I believe the video of your speech is the hottest thing on YouTube right now.
So I believe it's the one way I managed to get a number of my family members not living in India to see my speech. Even Dad is in London. So I think his exposure to my speech has been on YouTube.
Is he impressed? Is he envious?
He's coming back to the country today. I'll have to ask him.
Is he envious?
I don't know.
Do you sometimes compete?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
But tell me, Omar, we'll get into other things. But just about that speech, from where did that passion come? Because you've been in Parliament, as you said, and in politics for 10 years. We didn't see this side of you.
I think it was a combination of the frustration that I wasn't going to get a chance to talk. I'd been pressing for 2 days for a couple of minutes to speak. And the overwhelming thought I had was that here were members of Parliament supposed to be worth 25 crores each. And I wasn't even worth 25...
That was a floor price, fixed price.
Well, fixed price. And I wasn't even worth 25 seconds of Parliament's time. And this thought began to really irritate me. And then, of course, this whole thing about Amarnath and how Kashmiri Muslims don't want the yatra to go ahead, things like that. So all this kind of just churned inside until finally I got the moment to speak.
So it was from the heart.
I never got the chance to read what I'd prepared.
Right. And so the passion came out. And I remember you said that you were being interrupted, and that may be added to the irritation.
It did. I sat and listened patiently to 2 days of debate from the opposition, from the treasury benches. The least I could have expected was some amount of courtesy, that they would listen to what I had to say. I didn't interrupt when Advani ji talked about Amarnath.
Right.
Why couldn't they give me the courtesy of listening to me for a few minutes? Right. We don't have the muscle power in Parliament. I belong to a small party. We contest all of 6 seats. That's about as many as we'll have in the Lok Sabha.
But you've now figured how valuable you are in that Parliament.
Sure.
You know what your presence and Mehbooba's does to the credibility and just the respect of that Parliament.
There is
leaders from small parties, from a very distant state, can come and make their voice heard.
True, but you have to look at the way in which events conspired for this voice to be heard.
Right.
It was just by sheer luck that the Speaker had announced that 6:30 the Prime Minister would speak, and therefore everybody's eyes were tuned to hear what the Prime Minister would say. And then the Speaker said, let's give some time to the small parties. Otherwise, I could just as easily have been speaking the night before at 11 o'clock in the night, when nobody would have been bothering to listen.
And maybe the passion level would not be...
I'd have been half asleep.
But tell me, Omar, you made a very significant observation there. In fact, if you ask me as a cynical political analyst, I think you do 2 things with that speech. One, you emerged as a leader in his own right. So you sort of walked out of your father's shadow. Omar Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah's son, Sheikh Abdullah's grandson, now Omar Abdullah, the leader of his party. And the second, you finally came clean on your association with the NDA, particularly after Gujarat.
Sure. I don't know about the first one because that's something that I will always be Sheikh Abdullah's grandson and Farooq
I think your
Abdullah's
father will
son.
be the first to say this.
Well, let's see. If you get him on camera, let's see.
Right.
But on the second one, yes. It has been bothering me for a long time, particularly the Gujarat side of it. The fact that I didn't resign, or I did resign, but I didn't press the resignation. This is something that personally has been very difficult for me to come to terms with. And it just so happened that in the course of this debate, it wasn't something that I had planned to say, but it just came out, and now it's a matter of record, I guess.
But this had been nagging you.
It has been nagging me.
Take us back to those weeks. What happened?
Well, we all know what was happening in Gujarat, and we all know, the sense of anger and anguish that generated. But for me, I guess the factor that came into play was that I didn't believe at a personal level Atal Bihari Vajpayee was responsible for those riots. Narendra Modi was.
Right.
And I felt that by resigning from Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government and pressing that resignation, I would in fact be pointing the finger of blame on him, personally, which I didn't want to do. With hindsight, perhaps, as Prime Minister, there was more he should have done to control the situation.
I've told him many times that if he had acted then decisively or removed Modi, his stature as a national leader would have gone up.
Probably he feels the same way now, I don't know. I certainly feel
Did you have a
that
conversation with him on that?
I didn't. I didn't. I did go and tell him that, because if you remember at that time there was a vote in Parliament.
Right.
I did go and tell him that it would not be possible for me to vote along with the government and that at best I could abstain. And I handed over my resignation to him and told him that since I'm not voting with the government, I must offer him my resignation. He didn't accept it, I didn't press it. Perhaps that's where...
But did he say something to persuade you in his own way?
No. I mean, he was disappointed that because he obviously knew that this would reflect as one of the only Muslim ministers in his government, and if I wasn't voting along with his government, obviously it would reflect. But I truly felt that I could not vote with the government.
But did you get the sense that he was also truly remorseful? Or...
From the look on his face and his expression, yes. I mean, he wasn't a man who was comfortable with what was happening. Perhaps politics dictated his actions.
But wasn't able to control his party?
I don't suppose anybody could at that time.
But is that the reason why NDA has had limitations in expanding its reach?
It will always have limitation in expanding its reach because parties like mine will never be comfortable allies. We weren't comfortable then. I mean, even as members of the NDA, we fought elections in Jammu and Kashmir against each other. We fought a by-election, parliamentary by-election, in which we defeated the sitting BJP MLA, MP. So yes, the BJP will always have problem reaching out to more secular allies because of their politics.